When we select the font for a logo, it's important that the lettering is legible. Legibility essentially means readability. The aim of legibility is twofold. First, we want the audience to be able to read the text at a glance. Next, we want the text to maintain effective readability at small sizes. To achieve this, there are things we should avoid in some cases when choosing a font. There are also two principles in this case which apply. Too much bold, for instance, will make the characters look thick with minimal negative space, which negates their form. Next is the form itself. We may have a font which is a regular non-bold, yet the form of each letter may be odd in appearance. The font developer may be trying to be too outlandish or original. Okay, so let's go ahead and analyse the form of these fonts that we have here. Here's a 1930s style Gatsby type of font, but as you can see, the form of it, particularly the F, doesn't stand out enough to be absolutely readable. At a glance, we perhaps overlook the F and read it as something else, a lowercase r perhaps at a push. If we reduce it in size, this becomes an even more prominent problem. We can't make out the F. This is due to the fact that these lines here are way too thin. So on the right hand side, I've got an alternative font which could replace this font here. This is also a 1930s style font, and it's more simplistic, therefore it's more readable. As you can see at a glance, we can clearly identify the F as an F, and if we reduce it in size, it's still very readable. We can make out the F and the rest of the characters. So let's take a look at the next. We have a font here which is a script font, and it's a heavy bold. Now, due to it being a heavy bold, it becomes a chunky kind of form, and therefore it becomes less readable. The O, for example, is one such character which won't stand out at a glance, and if we go ahead and reduce this in size, you'll see that this becomes a prominent problem, because the O could perhaps be mistaken for an E. So on the right hand side here we have an alternative font yet again, which is a script font, but it's a lot more readable. The F, the O, the N and the T are a lot more prominent, and we can read the word font at a glance, and we can also read it effectively at a smaller size. Now on to the last example, which represents a worst case scenario. Now, not only is this not apparent as the word font at a glance or at a small size, we might actually have to analyse this for quite a while before we can even begin to read it as font. This isn't an effective font for any kind of application, so this is something I suggest that you avoid entirely. Now, the font developers try to be creative here. He's trying to be original, but the end result isn't satisfactory. The font isn't legible. So, as you can see, it's trying to achieve a square effect or a square shape for each character. And so I've chosen an alternative here on the right hand side, which also features square shaped block capital letters. So as you can see, this is perfectly legible. It says font F, O, N and T are clear at this size at a glance, and if we reduce in size, we can still read it as the word font. So by way of those examples, you should be able to understand what the difference is between a legible font and a font which isn't legible. So that's readability and non-readability. And the most important factors to remember are the font needs to be clear so that it can be read at a glance and at smaller sizes.